The vanished camper. Not all horror stories are legends. Some are born from police reports, missing person files, and 3 a.m. whispers that never get resolved. This is one of them. I lived through it. And even after years, I can still hear the last voicemail, still see the flashlight beam in the woods, and still feel the paralyzing silence that followed. This is the story of the vanished camper in Blackwood Forest. In July of 2014, my best friend Tyler convinced me to go camping with him. He was 23, I was 24. Tyler was the adventurous type, the guy who hiked mountains, swam across rivers, always chasing adrenaline. Me? I was the cautious one. But when he mentioned Blackwood Forest, I hesitated. The place had a reputation. People called it the woods that eat you alive. There were stories, hunters disappearing, hikers found weeks later wandering barefoot and confused, and even a local legend about a woman who lured people deeper into the forest with humming. I thought it was just folklore, but Tyler brushed it all off. It's just a forest, man. Trees and dirt. We'll drink some beers, roast marshmallows, and be back tomorrow. So, against my better judgment, I agreed that we drove out Friday evening, parked Tyler's Jeep near the trailhead, and hiked about a mile in before setting up camp. The first couple hours were normal, laughing, drinking, talking about stupid high school memories. The woods were thick, but peaceful. Then, around midnight, the woods went silent. I don't mean just quiet. I mean absolutely dead. No crickets, no wind, no distant rustling. Just silence so heavy it pressed against your ears. Damn, Tyler muttered, looking around. That's weird. Then we both heard it. A hum. Soft, almost like a lullaby, floating through the trees. It was a woman's voice. Who the hell is out here? I whispered. Tyler grinned nervously. Probably another camper. Relax. But the sound didn't move like a person's would. It was everywhere at once, echoing through the woods, circling us. We stayed up the rest of the night, staring into the dark, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. The next morning, Tyler wanted to explore deeper. I argued against it, but he laughed it off. Dude, you're letting campfire stories get to you. We hiked a narrow trail, but after about 30 minutes, I realized something unsettling. Our footprints from yesterday were gone. The dirt looked untouched, like no one had walked it. Yet, when I looked closer, I saw other prints. Bare feet. Small. Like a woman's. They trailed in front of us, always just far enough that we couldn't see who made them. Creepy, Tyler muttered, but he kept walking. By noon, the trail split into 2 paths. Tyler insisted we split up, just for 10 minutes, to see where each led. I shouldn't have agreed. But I did. When I got back to the split, Tyler wasn't there. I called his name until my throat hurt. Nothing. I ran down both paths, panic setting in. Still nothing. Finally, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. Tyler. His voice was frantic, whispering fast. She's real, don't follow, don't. The message cut off with a horrible sound, like the phone had been dropped into water. I froze. Then, from deeper in the woods, I heard the humming again. Louder this time. I stumbled back to camp, shaking, and waited. Hours passed. Tyler never came back. By nightfall, I ran to the Jeep and drove to the ranger station. They organized a search party the next morning, dogs, drones, volunteers. They combed the forest for 3 days. The only thing they found was Tyler's backpack. Inside was his phone, water bottle, and flashlight. But the strange part? The backpack was dry. Perfectly clean. As if it hadn't been sitting in the woods at all. 2 weeks later, Tyler's mom called me. She said the police had returned his belongings. When I visited, she handed me an old digital camcorder Tyler had brought on the trip. Most of the tape was normal, shots of us setting up camp, laughing, cooking. But near the end, there was a shaky clip, filmed as he walked alone. He was whispering. "I think I see her." The camera tilted, and for a split second, you see it. Tyler Carter was declared legally dead in 2017, though his body was never found. The official report called it accidental disappearance in wilderness. But I know better. Because sometimes, when I try to sleep, I hear it again. That humming. Soft, distant. Like it's waiting for me to follow. They say Blackwood Forest is just another patch of woods. But I know the truth. Something lives there. Something that doesn't let go once it chooses you. And every time I close my eyes, I wonder. Am I next? The disappearance of Emily Carter. Not all missing person cases make the news. Some are solved quietly, others stay buried in old police files. But then there are the ones that linger, not because of the person who vanished, but because of the details surrounding it. This is one of those cases. I was there when it happened. And even now, over a decade later, I still wake up in the middle of the night with Emily's scream ringing in my ears. In the summer of 2011, I was 21 and living in a small town in Pennsylvania. I was working at a hardware store and living with two roommates, Derek and Emily Carter. Emily wasn't just my roommate, she was my best friend since middle school. She was 20, studying nursing, and the kind of person everyone gravitated toward. Derek was her cousin, a quiet guy who kept mostly to himself. The three of us rented an old two-story house on Clearwater Lane. Locals said the place had a strange history. The landlord brushed it off as superstition, but people whispered about previous tenants leaving suddenly, furniture being moved in the night, and one story about a woman who had vanished in the 1980s without a trace. We laughed it off. We were young and thought we were invincible. Until the night Emily disappeared. It started small. Doors creaking open by themselves. The sound of footsteps upstairs when no one was home. The TV turning on in the middle of the night with static blaring. Emily was the first to notice it. She'd tell me, "Something's wrong with this house, I swear it." One night, I found her standing in the hallway, staring at the staircase. When I asked what she was doing, she said, "Someone was standing there. At the top of the stairs. Just now." But when I looked, there was nothing. Derek thought Emily was just stressed from school, maybe sleep-deprived. But I knew Emily. She wasn't the type to imagine things. Then came the scratching. At night, from inside the walls, faint scratching noises, as if long nails were dragging across the wooden beams. Sometimes it came from the attic, sometimes from the basement. We tried to rationalize it: rats, raccoons, old pipes. But when Emily started waking up with long scratches on her arms, we couldn't explain it away anymore. On June 17, 2011, everything escalated. We had been watching a movie when Emily suddenly said she heard something in the basement. A soft humming, almost like a lullaby. I thought she was joking until Derek muted the TV. And then we all heard it. A woman's voice, faint but distinct, drifting up from the basement door. None of us wanted to open it, but Emily, being the stubborn one, grabbed a flashlight. "If it's some creep in our basement, we need to know," she said. We followed her down. The basement smelled of mold and damp earth. The concrete walls were cracked, and old rusted shelves leaned against the far side. The humming stopped the moment we stepped in. Emily's flashlight beam swept across the room, and landed on something I'll never forget. Carved into the far wall, in jagged letters, were the words, She belongs to me. The air turned ice cold. Derek cursed under his breath, and Emily's hand tightened around mine. That's when we heard it again, behind us. The humming. But this time, it was louder. Right at our backs. We bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut. For the next week, Emily barely slept. She'd pace the house at night, jump at small noises, and constantly say she felt watched. On the night of June 24th, I woke up to the sound of Emily screaming. I ran into her room. She was sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, pointing at the corner. There. Do you see it? She cried. But there was nothing. Just an empty corner. Derek ran in, half asleep, and tried to calm her down. But Emily wouldn't stop shaking. He's here. He's here in the room, she whispered over and over. We stayed with her until she fell asleep, exhausted. By morning, she was gone. Her bed was neatly made. Her phone, wallet, and shoes were still there. There was no sign of forced entry. The only thing out of place was the window in her room. It was open, screen pushed out, even though we were on the second floor. The police came. They searched the woods behind our house, dragged the lake, interviewed neighbors. Nothing. Emily Carter had vanished without a trace. 2 days later, Derek found something chilling. We had set up an old camcorder in the living room weeks earlier, just for fun. He remembered it had been left running the night Emily disappeared. When we played it back, most of it was static. But around 3:12 a.m., the camera flickered. And for a moment, just a fraction of a second, you could see something. A figure. Tall. Thin. Standing in the hallway outside Emily's room. Its face was blurred, almost like the tape itself was trying to erase it. But you could make out its long arms, too long, stretching down almost to its knees. And then, Emily's door opened by itself. The footage ended there. The police dismissed the tape as distortion. They suggested Emily had run away, or maybe met with foul play outside the house. But Derek and I knew better. We moved out a month later. But here's the part I've never told anyone. On the night before we left, I went into the basement one last time. I don't know why. Maybe to find closure. The carving on the wall was still there. But there was something new beneath it. Scratched into the concrete, fresh and jagged. She's mine now. It's been 14 years. Emily Carter was never found. Her case remains open, buried in the missing persons files of the county sheriff's department. I've tried to move on. I've tried to forget. But some nights, when I wake up at exactly 3:12 a.m., I swear I hear it again. That humming. Coming from inside the walls. There are stories people tell in hushed voices, tales of things that don't make sense, of moments that can't be explained. Some call them urban legends, others brush them off as hallucinations, paranoia, or drunken memories. But when I tell you this story, I want you to know it isn't a campfire tale. It happened. And it has haunted my every waking thought since the night it unfolded. This is the story of what happened on Miller's Road, in the fall of 2012. I was 22 then, fresh out of college, working late shifts at a diner just outside of town. My car was old and temperamental, a rusting '98 Honda that rattled every time I hit 50. That night, my shift ended at midnight. The sky had been threatening rain all day, and by the time I clocked out, a heavy mist clung to the air. Normally, I'd take the main highway back into town, but I was exhausted, and my gas tank was nearly on empty. The shortcut, Miller's Road, was darker, lonelier, but it shaved 20 minutes off the drive. And so, against my better judgment, I took it. Miller's Road was a two-lane stretch that cut through dense woods. It had no streetlights, no reflectors, no houses for miles. Just trees pressing in close on either side, their twisted branches forming an almost skeletal arch above the cracked asphalt. Locals always warned against driving it at night. Too many accidents, too many missing persons reports. But at the time, I thought those were just ghost stories made up to scare kids. That belief died about 15 minutes into the drive. The fog was thick, so dense my headlights only carved out a few feet ahead. The silence was suffocating, no crickets, no rustling leaves, not even the hum of distant traffic. And then I saw her. A woman standing on the side of the road. She appeared out of nowhere, like the fog parted just to reveal her. She wore a pale dress that clung to her thin frame, soaked through with what I thought was rain. Her hair was long, black, and tangled, hanging down in front of her face. I slammed the brakes so hard my car fishtailed. My heart leapt into my throat, because for a split second, I thought I had hit her. But she was standing perfectly still. Motionless. Too still. I rolled down my window a crack, the damp night air flooding in. "You okay?" I called out, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. The woman didn't answer. She only tilted her head slightly, like a dog hearing an unfamiliar sound. That's when I noticed her feet. Bare. Mud-caked. Standing directly on broken glass from an old beer bottle scattered on the road. She didn't seem to feel it. I should have driven off right then. Every instinct screamed at me to. But some part of me, maybe the part that was raised to help others, made me put the car in park. I leaned across the passenger seat, opened the door, and said, "Do you need a ride? It's not safe out here." Slowly, she lifted her head. And I swear to God. Her eyes were completely black. She got in without a word. The smell hit first, damp earth, mold, and something faintly metallic, like rust, or blood. My stomach twisted. She sat stiffly, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She didn't look at me, didn't blink, didn't breathe heavily like someone who had been lost in the woods should. "Where do you need to go?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. Silence. Her head turned, ever so slowly, toward me. "Straight," she whispered. Her voice was dry, rasping, like air being forced through cracked glass. I swallowed hard and pressed the gas. The longer I drove, the thicker the fog became, curling against the windshield like smoke. I kept glancing at her from the corner of my eye. She hadn't moved. But then I noticed something chilling. Her dress wasn't just wet, it was stained. Dark stains spreading down the fabric, glistening faintly under the dashboard light. Blood. Miller's Road wasn't long. Maybe 8 miles, tops. But no matter how far I drove, I never reached the end. The gas gauge dipped lower. The clock on the dashboard ticked past 1, then 2, then 3. I kept expecting to see the old gas station by the crossroads, but it never came. It was as though the road stretched endlessly ahead of me, looping itself over and over. Panic set in. I slammed the brakes, pulled the car over, and said, "Look, I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm turning back." That's when she finally moved. Her head snapped toward me, faster than humanly possible. Her mouth opened in a silent scream, stretching impossibly wide, her jaw unhinging far beyond its limit. A sound filled the car, not from her mouth, but from everywhere. A low, guttural moan, vibrating through the seats, rattling the windows, shaking the very air in my lungs. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My vision blurred at the edges. And then, silence. When I blinked, she was gone. The passenger seat was empty. I don't remember the rest of the drive. One moment I was on Miller's Road, the next, my car was pulling into my apartment parking lot. The clock read 7:12 a.m. 7 hours had vanished. My clothes reeked of mold and iron. My fingernails were packed with dirt. And in the passenger seat, where she had sat, there was a single wet footprint. Bare. I told myself I'd imagined it. That exhaustion had played tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. Because 2 days later, I moved out of that town a month later. Haven't set foot near Miller's Road since. But sometimes, late at night, I catch glimpses of her in reflections, in dark windows, in mirrors, in the black static of a turned-off TV. And every time, she whispers the same word. Straight.